Okay, our sincere apologies for starting this a bit late, but the show has to go on no matter what. Okay, we want to look at the new National Development Plan. This is something that's been benchmarked for 2021 to 2025 by the federal government. We've heard of so many plans in Nigeria over the years, but actualization or implementation has always been the issue. And we want to look at how this can actually work, how realistic is this plan. And that's why we've got two of our regular brilliant minds in the studio this morning to look at this topic. On my far right is Bolaji Adeniji, a public analyst and a social commentator. Good morning, Mr. Adeniji.
Yeah, good morning.
Good to see you again.
Merry Christmas.
Thank you so much.
Compliments of the season.
Thank you. Thank you to see you. Thank you for joining us. Okay, we will also have with us Ustaz Jubril Awa, one of our regulars too. Ustaz, good morning.
Good morning, Yodun.
Thank you so much for joining us too.
Compliment of season to everybody at home.
Thank you.
Including my sister here too. She didn't give me ampa anyway.
Okay, Ustaz, we'll start from you. For obvious reasons, you are the eldest. And you must have actually, in this, on this program this morning, I mean, and you must have actually experienced a lot, seen a lot in terms of plans by Nigeria, since independence. But we also know that this is a country where we formulate plans. We don't really have, problems with ideas. We have ideas, but implementation has always been the issue. Now, this 2021 to 2025 development plan, having gone through it, do you think it's a paper that's workable?
Oh, thank you so much. You've told me that my grey hair should be able to help us to look into history, and I think I'll need to do that before going into what this present plan has in stock for Nigerians. And I know Bolaji will have studied it. We're going to do a lot of work on that anyway. But let's go back into history. When you look at NDP, the National Development Plans in Nigeria, post-independent. Before independence, we have about two. There was a 10-year plan by the colonial masters. You can't call that a plan. It was meant for the exploitation of Nigeria anyway. But after independence, from 1959 downward, we have about four or five, up to Bashagari, up to Abangida, we have five. And we had one that came, near after the colonial masters, Tafawa Balewa, 1969, about 1965. That was when they made it a 5-year plan. Everybody was 5-year plan, 5-year, 5-year. Tafawa Balewa came and it's a budget of about how much? Very small budget, about 1-point-something million naira then. That was the budget. They came and an ambitious one. They want to do a lot of things, set the plan for Nigeria, but it couldn't work. Normally, the military came up. Gowon took over. And when Gowon took over, he did his own to 1970, post Civil War, restructuring, building, laying foundation. The one thing that came out very clearly and that he focused on was transportation. About 30% of that development plan, the total size of that plan was meant for transportation. And when you look at it, you realize that quite a number of the roads that we have today, Lagos Ibadan Express Road, Nigerian Airways, etc., had their routes in that plan by Gowon. Yes, he made effort to build some industries, but they didn't really succeed. Some in his regime downward, they started the petroleum refinery, plants. They started it, but they couldn't really achieve much with it. Then, eventually, after Gowon, we have the Muritala Obasanjo, came in after Gowon. Gowon did what he could do. They wanted the petrochemical, they wanted the natural gas. It was part of the plan, but they didn't eventually achieve anything. Then Muritala came up, Obasanjo Muritala came up. Then we had the cabinet refinery that came up. We will not forget that the present PMB was, a minister of petrol in that regime. They did all they could do, one thing. Then eventually, after Muritala Obasanjo, we had Shagari. Shagari came up with an ambitious budget, very huge budget, and you will understand because at that point in time, we had oil boom. we have, he did a budget almost 30 billion, you know, and they wanted to do plenty things. You know, it was his period that we had all these white elephant projects uncompleted all over Nigeria. You know, the petrochemical in One, the fertilizer, the refineries, the LNG, all of that came up, even right from Mr. Obasanjo. You know, then after that we have IBB. IBB came up with his own plan, another very ambitious one. But what all IBB did, and which cannot take it from IBB, was that IBB happens to be one person that understood what it means to govern Nigeria, because he brought in all the eggheads. If you look at regime, the best policy in Nigeria was during the IBB regime. Go and look at it. All his policies were very fantastic. So they had a meeting, there was a conference in the UI in 1984 to look at what was wrong with Shagari regime and why it did not work, the Union plan. And they came up with their own plan. He now said, okay, they said the eggheads came up, professors, doctors, experts in their field came and said, let's stop this 5-year rolling plan, 5-year plan thing. Let's start, you know, a 20-year Union plan. And they call it perspective plan and rolling plan. The perspective is to put everything in perspective, you know, for 20 years. Then the rolling plan will come in 3 years. So they came up with their own too, and they started. But as we all know, huge budgeting, big money, eventually nothing came out of it. SAP came, you know, Structural Adjustment Program came under IBB. Because what happened was, when it came in, at the initial stage, there was a problem with the oil market in the 80s. Though suddenly, when the Gulf War started, they had a lot of money that came in, which were not implemented. Now, one thing that kept on recurring in all these plans has been that we have no financial discipline. There was systemic corruption. I will explain. 1977, Festac came up. Festac was not in any of our plans. It was not in any of the plans. But Nigeria went on to spend several hundred millions of naira to host Festac. It was not in the plan. Whereas all the petrochemical industry, LNG, Abeokuta, steel rolling mill were in the plan. They were not touched. I don't know what they are getting. So discipline was not that. It was one thing that kept on occurring from all the plans. Then it was not sustainable. This regime will come, or this government will come, as we want to put it. They will start their own plan. The other one will come. They will start their own, and they will not take it as an offshoot of the other plans. So everybody kept on coming with their own plan. So it was not sustainable. There was no discipline. There was systemic corruption, you know, and those were the things that made those, you know, development plans for all those years.
They are likely to marry these two?
Well, yes. However, there have been some improvements. When Buhari came up, you know, after OBJ came up with NEEDS, with Soludo, you know, National Economic Empowerment and Guinea Strategy, that NEEDS, they came up with that. And then after NEEDS came up, you know, by the time Abasanjo left, Yar'Adua took over. Yar'Adua couldn't really do much before his demise. Then Jonathan took over, and they continued on that same point. They didn't do anything meaningful in terms of development plan under Jonathan, because he kept on working on the NEEDS strategy of of OBJ, and that's why they invested so much in power, NIPP, all the stuff under Jonathan. Implementation came up under Jonathan. But when Buhari took over, they came up with their own economic recovery and growth, you know, plan, ERGP. Why? Because when they came in, there was an issue with the oil, you know, the benchmark of oil. And in all these plans we talk about, the benchmark has been, you know, the one major component has been the oil. So the behavior of the oil in the market determines what happens around the next plan in Nigeria. That's one thing I want us to know, the sources. However, in this current one, there have been a lot of tinkering with what will be the sources of the income. Number one, with this one, in other ones, the public sector has taken the big chunk of our development plan. But in this one, it has been ratio, you know, 14 to 87, or 85 to 14. I think I'm right. 85 to 14. Private sector is taking 85% of the plan, and public sector is taking, you know, 14% of the plan. And they want to change the sources. They are not depending more on oil. Rather, they want to see how they can expand the basis of tax within the country. These are the new things that has come up with the plan.
Okay. One would say that, you know, like you mentioned earlier, that different government will come with different plans and, of course, this present administration, like you said, the recovery plan 2017 to 2020 is one major one. And the question one will be asking, with respect to what Abiodun said earlier, that is this new plan going to go the way of non-implementation, as we have, as you have analyzed now, in terms of discipline, corruption, the loopholes and all that. With what you've seen in the 2017-2020 recovery plan, and maybe I should put that to Bolaji here, do you think with what the present administration has been able to do with 2017-2020 plan, recovery plan, they can do something different with this new plan that we have?
Well, thank you. Flowing from the historical perspectives of how we have consistently tried to develop a development agenda for our country, and how we have continually done that on a sustainable basis, but growth has been stunted. So for me, what we have currently is just yet another attempt at trying to rejig this economy that has been faltering. Before now, after the transformation agenda of President Goodluck Jonathan, the Buhari administration came, and it was not until we ran into troubled waters that we first had the first major plan. Before now, we had, he has gone through up until probably the regime of Jonathan. We have the Vision 2020, okay, which was a more nationalistic development plan, which was intended to make us one of the 20th best economy in the world in terms of GDP and all that. We tried our best, we didn't get it. It was just in just one area, the size of economy, that we got to 23rd. So we didn't achieve that agenda. And at the expiration of that, we have come up again with another one, which is Agenda 2050, which was put together this year. Before then, we also have within the EIGP, which was meant to put shocks into the issues that came up in the event of COVID-19. We also have the Economic Sustainability Plan, okay, which was put together in 2020. Okay, it was supposed to go 2020 to 2021. In between that, we also have the National Development Plan that was just put in place now. And there's another plan, the National Poverty Reduction and Growth Strategy, that was put in place to be a buffer to this new NDP that was again put in place. This one now is even ambitious. In my own thinking, they expect to take about 35 million people out of poverty. The new idea intends to create 21 million jobs in the midst of dwindling, increasing unemployment, and culminating in taking a total of 100 million out of poverty, which was their set agenda in 2021. And if you look at it, the challenges they have had has been about low economic growth. In terms of all the activities in our economy, the institutions are very weak. We have huge infrastructure deficits, and of course, we are not doing so much in terms of innovation and technology to ramp up our economic development. And you ask yourself that how do they want to finance this plan? Three things. They want to do external borrowings, which currently is at its peak and no longer sustainable. They also want to do tax expansion in terms of bringing more people into the net, and then doing some what we call PPP. But for me, my challenge is this. It is not enough to just continually to do plans. It's more about how you are managing other elements that makes it easy to translate your economic ideas into to benefit for the people. The people don't understand these figures. They don't understand budget. They don't understand inflation. They don't know all of these things. They can only relate the activities of government and policy of government to how it translates to disposable income into their pockets. And once they cannot see this, then it's just yet another plan. Even within the life of this current administration, we have already have about 5 rolling plans within this same system. And if we are predicating this same, the AIGP, the NDP, the MPSRG, okay, and the annual medium-term expenditure framework that they do annually, MTF, and physical strategy paper and FSP, if you put all of them together, they are predicated on 3 elements. One, borrowing externally to finance our deficit in the midst of building all resources, and secondly, to increase tax. The same strategy, and what has it brought to us now? If you look at it now, our debt overhang is so high, nearing unsustainable levels. If you look at how they said they want to fund this thing again, like I said, it's still same borrowing. And so by the time you are using about 80% of your capital receipt from oil and non-oil receipt to fund payment of debt, it therefore means that you are going to perpetually be in the borrowing market to be able to do even any development plan. So I am afraid that what we intend to do now with this new plan, how do we want to achieve it?
Well, one would ask questions with respect to what the economists are doing right now. You know, a lot of people have said this template that we're using is actually not our template. We keep bringing in important ideas to suit our own reality. And of course, with what you have analyzed right now, it shows that these things are not peculiarly, you know, dealing with our issues in this country. So what should the economists be doing differently at this stage to get the economy of the country standing?
Well, the capacity of those that are managing our economy is the issue. There is no amount of experts we want to bring in. When the driver himself lacks capacity, then there is issue. And that's what we are experiencing presently, like he has observed. In this present, you know, plan, I went through it, and I noticed that they are trying to play a game. I use the word trying to play a game by the fact that they didn't really come out and say they want to borrow. It takes an expert eye to know that what they are talking about, that they want to borrow money. They listed 3 areas of sourcing. So I mean, financing this. One, they place so much emphasis on, you know, increasing the tax burden of Nigerians. Or however, maybe they don't increase the tax burden, they will tell you, no, we only want to expand the tax net. We want to bring more people into the net so that more people can pay tax. You know, that is one. And they feel that getting money from that would help us to finance the 347 trillion, you know, plan that they have. That's the size. That's the size of the development plan. And that 2, they want to go into private, you know, partnership, you know, concessioning and, you know, bringing private organizations to help us to finance some of these projects. 3, they want to bring about fund, Nigeria Industry Growth Fund, I think I'm right, Investment Growth Fund, NIGF. They want to, like the Sukuk, the 250 billion that they just bond, and things like the bond, etc. Those are the areas they want to emphasize on. But then the question remains, if we are able to bring these in, who eventually will be the committee, the central governance of the plan? And that is the issue. That's why previous plans have failed. All our plans have been involved around the public sector. The public sector has been at the heart of governance of our plans. And this one too has not changed. Now, they have a 2-step governance. Number 1, they have the vice president as the chairman, you know, of this plan, managing, they call it Developmental Planning Implementation Unit, which is vested, you know, in the Ministry of Budget and Planning. But the president, the vice president is the chairman, and the vice chairman is the Minister of Budget and Finance. Then they brought in Peter Side as the co-chairman from the private sector. Then they now went on to have a steering committee. And the steering committee is made up of what? Of key ministers, you know, and MDAs, 6 governors from geopolitical, you know, zone of Nigeria. All these ones make up the steering committee. Then they brought in MAN and some other key sector of the private sector, key organs of the private sector. Now the issue is, when you still look at that, it is still vested in the hands of public servants. I don't think you are getting it. And the Oronsaye, you know, reform for public sector has not been fully implemented because we knew there are issues with this. So what I'm trying to say in essence is we might end up in the ways of other plans. Because those that have invested with the planning, with executing and implementing the plans, are still in the public sector and not the private sector. And that's where your question came from. Now, what are the economists going to do? And I said, what I have as challenge is that when there is the capacity of those at the will, is deficient. No amount of experts you want to bring in that will make it to work. And that is why, even no matter whatever plans they want to bring into it, whatever experts you want to bring into it, as long as the implementation of the plan is still vested in the hand of the public servant, we are back to square one.
What about the vagaries of politics? Mr. Adeniji, 2021 to 2025. 2025, that's like 4 years. In the middle of that, we're going to have election in 2023, and that will be 2 years before the end of the plan. The framework, the time frame of the plan. What about the vagaries of politics? We have actually mentioned some issues that they're like albatross, low spending discipline. Ustaz mentioned that, corruption. You mentioned that. He also spoke about the elements of some other elements that can incapacitate these. There's also the issue of the belief of people in taxation. If you're saying you want to bring more people into tax dragnet, the question is that do they believe that they need to pay tax? That's another issue. But I look at politics. I look at election 2023. What impact is this likely to have on this?
Huge impact, I must say, very huge impact. Every plan is the success of any plan, among other things, is hinged on how you're able to fund that plan. And we have said it so much here today that we have predicted most of our on external borrowings, which is almost at alarming rate. Almost every other week or 2-3 weeks, we find the Senate approving one loan or the other one on the other. It's even, we have even lost count. We don't even know the terms of some of these loans. The other day, the Senate was saying that, look, you can't be talking about $4 billion without an item of expenditure. Is it coming at a percentage? How are you paying back? We don't have that. Be that as it may. When any country is going for elections, development partners, funding agencies, international development and funding agencies try to restrict the volume of flow out because they want to be sure of the stability of that country. And that's when it is transiting from an administration to another one, not that a particular one is maybe repeating itself. So they want to be sure, they try to reduce their exposure because of the political bridges. So that's very, very, very fundamental under this plan. And you are doing a 4-year plan at the twilight of your administration. It doesn't make sense. And you are not even predicating it on any new matrix other than the one you have been using with ARPGP, with the economic sustainability plan, the same template, the same matrices, the same funding model, the same thing. So and you say you can't keep doing the same thing and expect a different result. So if you put this with the prediction of the IMF that we are probably going to be growing by 2.7% from the 1.9% we are doing this year in 2022, but you are putting up a plan that is talking about 5%. What are the variables? The oil price will continue to dwindle. Okay, the restrictions will continue to increase. So, and you are going to be having limited funding from your partner because first off, you are already borrowed to the tilt. Mr. President was in France the other day talking about how developing countries and high exposure countries need to be given some form of debt, relief, because why? So that they can increase capacity for more borrowings. We are not going to get that. So how do you hope to fund this? So we are rolling into a technical problem already. You see, I don't want to talk the banding.
Maybe before somebody come, maybe the ruling party, because it's also more of a very arrogant ambition, vision. Because you said, I'm trying to link this to what you said. you have like how many years? The current administration, few years.
Less than 12 months to even do any serious economic thing. Less
So
than
we are
12.
launching a development plan of 4 years. You know, maybe they think we will still be in office, the same personalities will still be running the same machinery, the same ideologies, principles. Maybe.
Yeah, well, it is assumed that normally, in a normal situation, you see, economic plans, development plans should naturally transcend any level of administration. That is how countries go when there's sustainability in their plan development trajectory. Okay, but we have seen it around here that it doesn't follow. Even when a president or a governor from into office, he even pretends as though there's an existence of a policy in place, comes up with this new idea because they want to be seen as being at the vanguard of something that they did, that they thought of, and they're implementing by themselves, all for self-glorification. So it's not about a pan-Nigerian agenda to tap into what is good and what has been put in place. So ordinarily it is good, but we have tested it and we have seen that it's not working. So why don't we now do something that can run within the life of the administration? Okay, use the resources that you have. Be more sincere in what we are implementing. Look, the other day, Sadiya Farouk will come and tell us that we have spent 40 billion to give poor people. We have done conditional cash transfer to the poor people. We have done this, we have done that. Trader money, farmer money, agri money, market money. All these social investment program freebies have been going on. And you ask yourself, how sincere? Where's the data? And these are the avenues where all these borrowed monies are going through. Now we are going to increase, we are going to be increasing price of fuel very soon now. And what do you want to do? We now want to 5,000 naira to 40 million Nigerians. Who are the 40 million Nigerians? Do you know what that comes to naira and figure? We don't have these monies, so we are still going to be using part of these borrowed monies to still do this. I just wish there can be better thinking on the part of these people. But to answer your question, politics will really degrade our capacity to even meet this plan.
One of the questions that we ask is that I think the younger ones ask is there a national vision for the country? We're talking about the policies that different administrations come in to introduce and of course implement, and of course they move on. The next government come in and then they change the plans, and like he said as well, they want to put something on the table that this is what we have done, not this is what. Is that part of the problems that we have over the years, that we don't have a national vision for where the country needs to be, where irrespective of the political party that is coming into power, we've seen countries like, if the UAE is talking about their country, they talk about the vision that precedes themselves. So are we saying precisely that it is lack of that is pushing us into having this kind of bottleneck all the time that we want to recover from one crisis?
We have Vision 2020, like you have pointed out. Shonekon came up and it was a team then. Shonekon was UAC, I think then, when Vision 2020 came up. And it was because they wanted all subsequent government to tap into it and, for their planning. The NDP should have been, an offshoot of the visions that we have. It has not worked, that's the problem. Presently, this present government is doing Agenda 50-50 or whatever they call it.
2050.
It's not going to work like that. And I'll tell you what I'm saying. In their own plan, they have 6 strategic areas of, intervention, even for this plan. Economic growth and development, human capital development, social development, infrastructure, and one other one, about 6 of them. I can't recall. Even at that, they now went on to say that they expect states and ministries to evolve their budget on these, clusters. In other words, when the MDAs is going to come up with their own budget, they should ensure that they have programs that evolve around these clusters. I'm trying to explain where we have discrepancy between the vision and development plans. Because the visions normally are broken down. When you talk of 20-year vision, you now have, 5-year development plans. It should be like this, okay, 4, 4, 4. Now, when you now have that, how do you expect to implement those plans through your budget? Because all these, they sound technical, but they are tools of implementing those visions. The vision we have there comes down to development plans. Development plans are broken down into your budget. You understand? Okay, in this plan, we want to approach this. Certain percent of our budget is going to take care of each of these clusters. And this is the money we're expecting we're going to have to finance our budget, like he has explained now. But when you look at it, for instance now, the 2022 budget, is it an offshoot of this plan? The answer is no.
Okay.
Are you getting it? These are challenges. Now, he asked a question that what happened with 2023? Politicians are planning 2023 now. In number of the budget for 2022, when they were bringing those costs out, the cost estimate, they are having 2023 in focus because they will need the money to finance elections and campaigns. And that money must come from projects. I don't know where you are getting it.
Yes, yes.
So, and these are the things that are coming up. By the time they can say, okay, we want to spend 60 billion naira or whatever in the next budgeting period, physical period, for electricity, for instance, to upgrade this, upgrade that, upgrade that. What percent of that amount of money will eventually go into the upgrading of electrical infrastructure? I hope you are getting it.
Yes.
So that is why the vision has not worked. We have vision. Now that vision is going to come up now. But the vision has not been broken down into development plans.
So the vision you said we have, because it's more or less like
academic
a government.
Academic exercise.
Okay, a government comes to power if there is a change in the strategy with which those visions are being crafted. For example, you talk about a ruling party bringing up or coming up with a vision for the country, Vision 2020, that's about 20, 30 years. And of course, the opposition politicians there, will it be a plus if those people that will be in the crafting of the vision are all encompassing, whereby you might not be the one in government, then I will be the one in government. It will be something you agree to, in the sense that this is APC government and PDP is also around the corner. So if I don't have, if the way I want the country to look is not how you have portrayed it in that vision, it's definitely not going to work for me. Okay. So if there is a change in the tactics of implementing or in drafting of a vision for the country or direction of the country, will that change the outcome?
It will change. Do you know why it's going to change? It's because when they do this vision, it has not been converted into any legal document that you can hold anybody responsible for.
Okay.
I don't know how you are getting it. Yes. So when certain government comes into power and they want to relate with the National Assembly, there is no template or a benchmark the National Assembly is checking them against. Are you getting it?
Okay.
So the vision for it to become something that every government is held accountable for must become a legal document.
Okay.
It must be promulgated into a law. So whoever comes in as Senate president, whoever comes as Nigerian president, doesn't matter. There is already a template we have for our vision, which is a legal document, which everybody's, the benchmark for your business plans is the benchmark for your budgeting, and people are asking questions. The business planners are asking questions. NGO, civil society are asking questions. Now look, what you guys are doing is not in conformity with what we have said we want to do in our legislation, and that is what is missing. So the vision needs to be legislated into a legal document that people can relate to and become a benchmark for them. When that one is not there, you cannot hold any government accountable that why are you not following this pattern?
All right, so with the economic development, let me just add, the argument again has always been that 2023, like you said, is around the corner, and that of course would influence what is going to happen along the line. So with this plan, government have been saying that the people should support them in whatever project that they are doing, so that the country can move forward. So what should the people be doing right now?
You don't just ask for people's support if they don't see you to be doing the right things, and that once you do something, they can see it, it has an effect on them. You know, the primary purpose of government must be that you enhance their welfare and guarantee security. Once those two is not there, you are failing your responsibility. And so even on those two bases, can we say we are having the best right now in terms of security and even economic welfare? No, this probably has to be the dullest unitary period in the history of Nigeria. And so it's not to rally the people to follow a national agenda. You have to come up with sincerity. And the question you asked, to which he made a response to, boils down to fiscal restructuring. Okay? If you don't look, how did countries like United Arab Emirates and Singapore, for instance, let's even use those two for instance, grow astronomically, economically, over a period of 30 years? Okay? And you ask yourself a question, is it that because they have one political party running the system, or they have a family who were in charge of the economy for that long? No. They have a national plan. And that national plan is to say, we want to make this country the destination for the world. We want to achieve this, we want to achieve that. These are clear statements that they put in their constitution. And because they have that plan, the variables that will make it happen in terms of funding plan, in terms of implementation plan, all of these things are also codified.
Yes.
To the extent that no matter who gets there, you must follow that developmental trajectory.
Because it has been codified.
It has been codified. You cannot stop it.
You can't.
You cannot stop it. So what you can just be doing as an administration is to come in and say, okay, how do we tweak it to face current realities based on things that happen in the world, because you don't have everything cast in stone. So that is what nations do. So if you don't do that, you are just going to be wrong. Then we have other elements that we now need to bring in place to make all these things work. Look, ask a question. What is the business of the federal government? So come and be seeing who is hungry, who is poor in Abeokuta to give him 5,000 naira.
Yeah.
It is a misplaced priority. Everything that is under the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs today is a waste, which I believe that must be stopped. And we are pumping in billions into that place, which is a waste. Where are the people, 11 million families that benefited during the heat of the COVID, where that dropped over 104 billion? Do they know who's hungry in my village in Atlanta?
Well, according to
so if we don't,
we have been working with the state government of each state in Nigeria. So I think
where are the data? Okay. You must look. You don't deceive yourself. Everything must be backed to data that is empirical and facts that are unimpeachable. To say this is what we are doing exactly. What is the meaning of Federal Ministry of Agriculture? Where are the farms? Are there federal farms? Do you know how many billions and how many agencies are under the Ministry of Agriculture, all having their overheads and bureaucracy? These are the areas where all this waste is going. Calibrate all these things. Restructure. When we are saying restructuring all the time, people just think that we are talking about power going to somewhere.
Yeah.
There's devolutions of power. There's resource control. There's physical restructuring. That is answer people who are looking for states, who are looking for power. There's not physical restructuring. That talks about how do we manage our resources, and how are we doing the monies so that it works for the people. What should the state be doing? What should the federal government should be doing? So if we don't address these more fundamental ones, you just see people in Abuja doing plans and spending money and just spending money. That's my problem.
We are being watched live on Facebook, and some of our viewers are also talking. Somebody came in with a point, and I'd like to actually bring that to the table quickly before we end this discussion. And the person said, in the midst of these, you will expect opposition parties, to be also talking. They should be saying that what National Development Plan is APC putting in place. And the person went further by saying that is there any difference between, do we even have opposition parties in Nigeria? Is there any difference between PDP and APC, for instance, that people just move from here and there? And, I mean, I don't know. I think that's also quite fundamental, because I don't think, Ustaz, what do you think? If you are inside and there is nobody outside looking at what you're doing inside, criticizing you, and suggesting better plans for the country and all of that, then what are we talking about? Because from outside, it doesn't seem there is any better plan, anybody's thinking about from outside. I'm talking about what do I mean by the outside? I mean political parties that are, or those that are not within APC at the moment.
The last time we had anything called opposition was in the 60s and 70s under the Awolowo regime. And that's the truth. All we have there is just nomenclature. APC, PDP, just nomenclature. They are all birds of same feather. When you look at Nigeria, and you look at our history from pre-independence to post-independence, the only person, and I say this with all sense of responsibility, the only leader that has done something meaningful for Nigeria in terms of having a development plan for Nigeria has been late Bafemi Awolowo. And all that he did are documented. He had books, strategies of this is how we need to go about this. Give me any other leader from his era to this era that has done something meaningful that we can see is documented, that stood up on the federal, House of Representatives to argue continuously and give people this is the way forward. No other person. And that is the challenge we have now.
Adawo died in 87.
He died in 87. And have you read all his books? Most of the things he recommended are still relevant till today. I have had the opportunity of reading quite a number of his publications.
Fiscal federalism,
all are still relevant till today. And this is what is missing. We are having leaders who lack the capacity to rule us. And that's the challenge.
My son went in Ibadan recently, and my son said, Dad, he saw Cocoa House. And he said, this house is very tall, and it's still remaining tall and strong. And we have a lot of structures that were built much after Cocoa House, that had collapsed. And I said, it was built by Awolowo, how many years ago?
And
so many years ago.
To him, Awolowo is Awolowo.
No.
So I don't know. Mr. Dede, to also, do you want to buttress that point? I think you're also. Are you a politician or?
I'm also a politician.
A politician, yes.
But sometimes when I'm on this kind of platform, I try to pan down the part of Nigerians and I'm dispassionate because Nigeria is bigger than any political party. It's bigger than anybody's ambition. When we get to time to vote, we can decide that this is where we want to align to. But there must get to a point in the life of a nation when patriots must come out to say, look, if we all don't arrest this drift, we will all get to the edge of the precipice. And when it falls, it falls on all of us. Yeah. So therefore, it's no longer matter I am a PDP apologist, I'm an APC person, or I am PRP. And you see, one of the bane of our democracy that is killing us gradually in this country is the lack of proper opposition. You see, it's not just to come and criticize. If you look at better democracies, when a party is in government, you ask yourself that what is the other party outside doing? It's not for a political party to just be releasing press statements whenever they feel that the government power does something, just be writing press statements. It doesn't make sense. What you do as a proper opposition is to say, when a party is in power, you are going to create what we call a shadow cabinet. Within your system, within your strategy system.
Sorry, I want to cut you. Did we all remember how Britain quit the European Union?
Yes.
And we saw the robust debate between the Labour and the Conservative.
That debate came about because because you have a political party who is not in power, has a shadow cabinet, whereby they sit down in strategy sessions to look at budget, to look at the economy, to look at what's happening anywhere, and they provide solutions.
And what are the implications of the action you want to take?
So when government says, I want to borrow $10 billion to finance this, a political party will come and say, okay, you are borrowing as also percentage. If you do this is implication. If you do this one, this implication. And then tell the people of the country that this is the reality. This is what we are going to be doing better. So when they don't provide that robust alternative, then you leave the government in power to do what they want. So we are not suffering from the lack of proper opposition, not just to put the party in power in check, but to give Nigerians credible alternative.
Because that's the point. Because as we move toward 2023,
what is the PDP telling Nigerians?
What is it telling Nigerians? This NDP, the 2021.
What is their alternative plan to it? Are they even engaging? They don't engage policy. Opposition parties don't engage policy in Nigeria. They don't engage program because they're not even brilliant. They only
personalities.
very unfortunate for us. Not until we start telling opposition party that you people are lazy in thinking, you are lazy in ideas. All you want to do is power should come back to us.
Before we I don't really want us to digress and look at
get to politics.
Opposition, ruling party dichotomy.
But they have a role to play.
But they have a role to play. But the question here is that, the question the caller, the viewer actually asked is that do we even have that opposition? Because it's just a question of, somebody who gets disgruntled in a party moves to another party.
My brother, on this platform, we have discussed it here, that what we have are vehicles for the implementation of personal agenda of individuals or group agenda. That is why you see that in the life of the current democratic dispensation, we have had people who have even voted and contested elections on the platform of these two big parties back to back. They were people, so therefore that suggests to you that it is just two sides of the same coin, as it were.
We must thank you so much, gentlemen, because we can't, with these two gentlemen, you can discuss this issue for 2 hours, and you continue to get this fresh. Ustaz, thank you so much for the intro, the brilliant intro you gave us. Bola Jadiniji, thank you so much for the brilliant submission. Always, as always, thank you so much. We have to quit this discussion here. The new National Development Plan, 2021 to 2025. We hope it works. But of course, the two gentlemen have also given us reasons why the plan may not work: low spending discipline, corruption. Then the election of 2023, will government still be concentrated, on the plan? 2023, 2 years before the plan. These are the issues that could actually emanate in the next few years, as far as this plan is concerned. Thank you so much for coming once more.
It's a pleasure.
We'll take this break. When we come back, we'll be looking at the epidemic, International Day of Epidemic Preparedness today, and how do we work against the epidemic. We're still battling with one, Omicron, COVID-19, still very much around with us. We have an expert coming from the State Ministry of Health joining us.